Yeah. But you see how all of that stuff became so important, you know, and all of that stuff became a part of our culture and a part of the way that we treat money. And of course, what you have to do now is to begin to resonate a powerful intention for your whole trip about money. Because when a person permeates that negativity or that weakness inside of you, because it is already there in your mind, there has to be an acceptance. You know, you have to accept that. If you're standing next to somebody in a supermarket and they're projecting lack, if you have lack inside your mind, you actually enhance or increase the lack that you have. Okay? The only way you can come out of power is to not have it in your mind, or to have this forward projection of energy, this expanding energy that feels, yes I can, yes I will, I have it all around me, this is a flowing situation and there's no problem with the amount of money that's going to come to me in my life. When you resonate your feelings, they change moment by moment as to what you feel about yourself. If you feel negative, you begin to create inside of you a feeling that pulls energy to it in a kind of imploding or coming in parabola of energy or curve of energy. And negativity has a way of resonating, so it sucks other feelings towards it. So if you're negative, you'll pull to you somebody else that is equally negative. If you're negative, you'll pull to yourself energy patterns that are disastrous or tend to fall about. And at the top of the curve, you know, it's just little niggly things that go wrong. You know, the car won't start, and this happens, and the handle comes off the bathroom door, that kind of stuff. But then bit by bit, as you begin to resonate the negativity after a long period of time, then suddenly the whole energy pattern begins to break up around you, and the whole thing drops on your head and collapses on top of you. You know, whether it's a financial collapse, or whether it's a collapse of your physical body, or collapse of a relationship or some situation, it's because through the negativity, you pull that to you. And by pulling it to you, you suck from the physical plane, and you suck only those parts that are congruent to you. If you imagine yourself walking along in this bubble of energy, okay, all of life is coming at you at the speed of light. And it's coming at you upside down, okay, at the speed of light. And you have all of these possibilities coming at you at any one given moment, okay? And you will pull from those feelings that are the same as your feelings, that are congruent with your feelings. So all the goodness in the world is coming at you, and all the evil's coming at you. And then you can pick up whatever you want. And so you kind of filter through your own feelings those experiences that are exactly the same as what you feel. And so as you maintain and establish a negative energy pattern, or a pattern of limitation or lack, it begins to pull in on you, and it pulls from the physical plane all of those things that are exactly the same. The only way to defend yourself against that, the only way to really develop a power inside of yourself, is for you to begin to pull out of you this transcendent, infinite, abundant feeling from within you. When you express positively, it creates an outgoing or exploding curve of energy. It's like this outgoing feeling. Not only is it warm, is it fresh, is it loving, but it inspires people because it's pure life force. It's pure confidence. And it's not like sort of confidence that you wear on your sleeve, which is real sort of pushy type of confidence, but it's basically confidence of feeling everything's okay. And as you resonate that energy outwards, the more and more power that you put out into the world, the more you allow that infinity and that abundance to come from your feelings, the less the negativity of the other people pulls you down. Because you cannot walk in a crowd of people, say in a supermarket or in a shopping mall, without having all of those people affect you. And you've all experienced it, where you've got out of a car and you've walked into a mall and you've only walked like maybe 100 yards or 200 yards, and you bought like a can of something and you walk back to your car and you're absolutely exhausted. You know, have you had that experience? Right. And it's because what happens is, as you walk through that mall, your feelings are resonating around you, and everybody else is literally taking a bit of that energy from you. Every time they have eye contact with you, every time they touch you, every time they pass you, a part of you leaves with them. Unless you're resonating this everlasting supply from within yourself and resonating it powerfully and strongly. Then what happens is you get into the habit of holding your energy, holding that power to yourself. And it's the same way, again, with money. If you feel confident about it, it begins to be there. It's like natural. But you can't come from like way down here in a state of, let's say, limitation and poverty to something up here where you're walking with or a part of absolute abundance. You know, if you resonate poor feelings, you have to stay poor, because universal law's got to reflect that. And so the name of the game as you begin to master money is one, allow yourself the patience to go beyond the old stuff, the old garbage, and two, begin to resonate in your feelings the abundance that you're a part of. And here you have to be very, very careful, because a lot of people begin to think, oh yeah, all I've got to do is act abundant, act powerfully, act transcendent, you know, buy a lot of stuff, buy a lot of fancy clothes, and abundance will come to me. In fact, what you've got to do is you've got to begin to see abundance in those things that you actually have. Okay? It's not a matter of like going out and spending a lot of money on French clothes or something and then being in debt, because that very fact that you're in a debt is going to pull you backwards. It's more like saying, okay, around me I have this and I see beauty and abundance in it. And then, as you begin to become more and more confident and you have more and more surplus income, you can begin to create affirmations of abundance in your feelings that actually affirm, hey, I'm doing fine, I'm doing well. And so, yes, go out and buy a good suit. Go out and buy a fine dress, a fine pair of shoes, whatever it is, you know, and have one, but have one of the very, very best quality. If you go for the cheap and the cheerful and the discount, it's always has that energy. You know, a discount, say, vacuum cleaner has a discount vacuum cleaner's energy. And I remember my wife once buying this vacuum cleaner. It was at a used machinery shop, you know, one of those places where they sell used appliances. And she was all proud of herself because she'd got this thing for $15. And she wheels in this vacuum cleaner, and it looked like a $15 vacuum cleaner, you know. In fact, to me, it looked like she'd been ripped off at $15. And she plugs it in, and there's this limp little bag hanging on the back of this thing, you know. I mean, it's just holding on for grim death. And I said to her, don't you think that bag is supposed to be like full of air and abundant and pleased with itself? And she says, yeah, you know, I think you're right. And she was vacuum cleaning this room, and the vacuum cleaner made a decent kind of noise, but you could see that nothing was coming up off the carpet, you know. As it went over dust and pieces of paper, they just jumped up and then went back down again. And I thought, this is not a real effective way of vacuum cleaning the carpets. And then as she was wheeling this stupid thing around, the wheel came off. And as it came off, it created this sort of very, very sort of gentle curve as it went around the carpet and sort of came into this semicircle round to the other side of the room. And of course, as the wheel went round the room, it did pick up a little bit of dust on the wheel, you know, that was natural. And I looked at it, I thought, oh, this is how this vacuum cleaner works, right? It fires little wheels that pick up microscopic bits of dust. You know, if you buy something at a discount, if you buy the cheap and cheerful, that's the only energy you'll ever have. You know, and you can go in there and you can see this vacuum cleaner and it looks neat and it's made underwater by Brazilian convicts and it only costs $9, and you'll say, I take it, and it has that energy. And so I would say to you, like, if your life is in control and if you're beginning to master money and beginning to feel that you will always have money, then you can begin to spend on those things that are important for you. And I would always go for the very best. I would just have less of them. You know, if you've only got one suit, at least have one decent suit and look good in that. So at least when you go for the interview, you come out of an energy of like, you know, I feel abundant, I act abundant. But don't go wacko, wacko, wacko and just spend a whole bunch of money. And I've watched people take on this philosophy and do exactly that and get themselves into tremendous trouble, you know. As you begin to create those feelings inside of yourself, it has to permeate your entire life. You can't have, like, let's say, one nice dress and then buy a $1.99 pair of shoes, you know, plasticky ones. And you can pretty much always tell people buy their shoes, because only people that have got money spend money on shoes, you know, that buy decent shoes. So you'll get somebody that's wearing this incredible dress, and then they're wearing these pair of shoes, and they're like this little plasticky pair of shoes. And you can suss it out. I mean, you can say, oh, my gosh, look at that. You know, if somebody comes in for an interview and they're beautifully dressed and they're wearing a decent pair of shoes, you know that that person, you know, feels good about themselves, feels strong. And of course, how much money you make is exceptionally intimately linked to how good you feel about yourself. Because it's a function of the ego to devise a system for its own survival. It's a function of the ego to try to win acceptance from the people. It wants you to love it. You know, you want people to come up to you and love you. And so what happens is, as we go out into the marketplace, we have a tendency to sort of charge less or not charge anything at all, just to win people's acceptance. And that's the same thing about being sucked into what people think about us. You know, if you're not sucked into what people think about you, you just go about your life, what they think about you is their problem, not your problem, then you can begin to charge what you like for your services. And if you're coming out of energy, and you're coming out of love, and you're coming out of transcendence, you're basically selling a higher ideal, and there isn't any limit to what you can charge. But so often, you'll do an incredible job for somebody, and they'll come up to you and they'll say, how much do I owe you? And you'll say, no, you know, I don't need any money, you know. I mean, how many of you have done that, you know? I mean, I watch your heads nodding, you know, yeah, no, I don't want that. And what you're sort of saying is, please love me. You know, if I do this for absolutely nothing, will you love me, you know? Or you've said, yeah, you know, okay, but it should normally be $100 and just give me 20 or just give me 10 bucks and that'll be enough. And it's a way of like not feeling confident about yourself. When you give something, when you sell something to somebody, when you give them a service, when you do something for them in a commercial act, you're loving them. You're helping them. You're assisting them, you know? You're delivering this refrigerator to them, and that saves them going all over everywhere and finding a refrigerator or building one themselves. You know, when you transfer goods and services to people, it's a way of loving them. And so if you love them, why wouldn't you have them love you back by giving you their money? You know, if you come out of energy and you come out of dedication and you come out of service, there isn't any limit to how much you can charge within reason. And I don't believe in rip-off, or I don't believe in overcharging, but I certainly don't believe in undercharging. You know, and so many of you don't charge enough. You don't charge enough for your labor. You don't charge enough for your products because it comes out of like that self-image that says, oh gosh, I'm not really worthy for all of this, so I really shouldn't be charging that, or they're not going to love me if I don't charge, you know, if I charge so much. But in fact, when you can see the transactions that you're involved in life as energy, then you're not involved in the emotions of how much things cost. It's a fact of the commercial world that the more quality you put into something, the more you can charge. And at the top end of the scale, you know, you can charge anything you want. And so you're looking at trying to put energy, trying to put yourself into your commercial endeavors, whatever they might be. I mean, so often you'll go into a business, you'll go into a hotel, you'll go someplace, and the whole energy of the place is bland. You know, nobody's in it. Nobody cares. It's institutionalized. It's like press a button and this thing comes out, and you don't feel good about parting with your money. But when you're with a person that's enthusiastic, they're happy, they put their heart and soul into the product, you don't mind. You feel the life force, you feel the God force, and that inspires you. And so it almost feels like you're transferring money to another part of yourself. You know, if the other person is sort of demanding, or they don't have any energy in it, or they're institutional, there's a sense of loss. You think, oh gosh, I've paid for this room, but I don't know if I really liked it, you know. It's very much a matter of putting yourself into your life, into your commercial life. And that's important. When you can subjugate your ego and put that underneath the ego of your customers or the people that are pulled to your life, then you have the ability to serve them. And that doesn't mean that you're going to lose any sense of identity inside yourself, because you're not. But you're going to come out of loving people by serving them. And serving them is like looking them in the eye and finding out what they want. You've got to remember that you're dealing with a person who's maybe scared or lonely, or their body aches, or they have a need, or they need friendship or company, or whatever they've come up for. Because what they've showed up for in your life may not necessarily be the product. You know, it may be some totally different reason. They've come around for healing of one kind or another. And if you can put yourself underneath them, then what happens is they feel your support. And there isn't a person out there that doesn't want to be supported, that doesn't want to feel more secure, because the name of the game out there is basically feeling insecure, feeling scared, feeling fearful about the fact that you don't necessarily control life. And so there you are. You're this confident, smiling, heroic being, and you get up underneath the person and you come out of service. I'll never forget an incident that happened to me in Washington, D.C., where I was going into a seminar, and there was a young waiter there, and he just happened to come up to me and said, in the hotel, he said, what is the secret of tips? And I said to him, the secret of tips is to get underneath the customers, you know, to get underneath and really serve them. And he said, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, what I mean is that for the time it takes you to serve this person and to be with them, you'll subjugate your ego for their needs, absolutely. And so rather than coming out of like thought forms of, oh gosh, when does this shift end? And look at this guy, I really don't like the way he's dressed. And oh goodness me, he's asked me for some more peanuts. And oh goodness me, I'm rushing about. What you're doing